Safe place.
All right, let's get this meeting started.
Shot.
Half a second, or half a minute off, correct?
No, it's just fine.
Okay.
All right, Mr. Chair, we had looked at the joint powers agreement at the last study session, and
Everyone turn on their mics, please.
I know your video.
Thank you.
there were two words in, on page 3. It's found in 3A. On page 3, we're going to make sure that each member district has a non-voting ex officio member. And then 3, strike others voting members, just 3 voting members.
What page is that, Jeff?
Page 3. Okay. Is there any questions on that? I mean, is that what we were aiming at the last time?
That clarifies things for me.
Me too.
Me too.
Anything else you want to talk about, Mr. Chair, on the joint powers agreement?
Well, is that the only, we talked about a lot of things, and I suggested the makeup of the board. I mean, is that, are those all the changes that anybody's even willing to consider at this point in time? You know, we had options of how the board is going to be configured, and discussion, and some of the other points about taking on, well, there's that, the consolidation one, taking on the debt, that'll be next, but, and who's going to appoint the 3 members from each district, and the alternates, would it be by a board vote? That, you know, all that stuff isn't in here. And I would suggest,
I don't necessarily think that needs to be in there, like the board vote for a joint powers board. I think that that can be just like we vote for a chairperson.
okay, but later on it says, when you, let's see, have an appointment or a vacancy or an alternate, it says the board of each member district does that.
As an alternate.
Let's see, I'm trying to find it.
I do see in 3B, it says each representative and alternate shall be appointed by their member district. And I took that to be the board.
Yeah.
I guess that, I mean, I remember you talking about like the number of the makeup and everything. I was fine with everything else, honestly, so.
Right. Okay, look under C. I just think that if it's in the vacancy part, it says a seat will be vacated by resignation or by a majority vote of the school board of the member district. So I think that language should also be in the representative part A, and part B about the appointment of alternates. It's just consistent. And because when I read that, I thought, well, yeah, that makes sense, the school board, but for the reps and an alternate.
I don't know. I take if the discussion here is about the member district part, I think that's fine. I mean, I see that as being, you know, our Evelyn Gilbert district.
Is that your understanding?
That's how I see it.
That the school board
The very
as a
first-
whole will vote on these members?
The very first sentence of the appointment for B, each representative other than the superintendent and alternate shall be appointed by their respective member district for a 2-year term,
Member district, okay.
which would be our school board.
Okay, that's your understanding, as long as it's
Yeah.
understood. And then again, the makeup of the board. I don't think a joint powers board should be watered down with 3 representatives from each district. That's very workable to either have a 13-member board or to have 2 separate boards like we did when Evelyn and Gilbert consolidated. And everybody meets, everybody hears, everybody has input, and it's not cumbersome. It will actually cut down on the number of meetings. This is going to add more meetings to certain people, board members. If you do it the way I'm suggesting, and I think that's the only fair way for the people who elected all of us, that all board members be part of a joint board. And I don't think it would stall, hamper, or anything. And the other reason I think that is because I rushed here today from out of town, but anyhow, I do know that it's in here that this joint board not only will make decisions about the shared academy, they will be making decisions about
The
each district's
construction of the
elementary.
elementaries.
Yes. Mhm. And each other's districts, and we will not be consolidated for at least a year, till July 1st of next year, if that timetable happens. And so, to me, just doesn't seem right, that, you know. And then, okay, say it's a 4-member board, we went through this before, before you make a decision, a 6-member board, 4 people is a quorum, okay? So you could have 4 out of 6 at a joint meeting, so then you're going to have 4 people making a decision out of 13 elected people. I think that's very narrow. Plus, it could be, I know you're saying we're not pitting Virginia against Evelyn, us against them, it's all for the students, but it could work out that a meeting of a quorum of 4, you could have 3 Evelyn Gilbert representatives and 1 Virginia representative, and they might be making a decision legally for the Virginia elementary school. I don't see that as the right way to go.
I'm fine with the way it's presented.
Honestly,
What's that,
I feel that a joint powers board, I do not question the integrity of decision-making for that joint powers board. And I would think that any individual sitting on that board best be looking what's best for our students. Whether they're Virginia Roosevelt, whether they're Evelyn Gilbert, it's irrelevant to me. It honestly is. And I feel comfortable, completely comfortable, and I would say if I did not, I certainly would say, I don't think that if four Virginia board members were sitting there making decisions for Evelyn Gilbert Elementary, I would trust their judgment.
Okay.
I would not think that they were out to hurt our children in any such way. I've been working with them for 2 years. I don't question that from them.
And I would not be judging the integrity of any board members either, even if they're from not our district. But we not only are looking out for what's best for the district and our students, we have 3 communities involved here. And even at MSBA board training, they stress when you make a decision, you need to think about the communities involved because we have a big impact on the communities. And that's why I think that, so it's not the integrity of anybody. I'm saying full representation by the people they elected.
Well, I'd say we have a lot more than 3 communities if you,
Well, Vale Township, Clinton Township, yeah. Unorganized, you're right, you got my point though, the
Yeah.
principle of it. So, and if Virginia might be worried that Evelyn Gilbert has a 7-member board and they have 6, that we have maybe 1 more person than them or 1 more vote, it really wouldn't matter because a quorum of 13 is 7, and you could have all 6 Virginia board members voting the same way and 1 Evelyn Gilbert one, which is not going to be likely. You're only going to have 1. You know, there's going to probably be unanimous votes on many, many things, if not all. And so, to me, that's not a concern. But if that is a concern, I would suggest then we could have the full Evelyn Gilbert board, the full Virginia board. We meet at the same time. If there's any business that's just the Evelyn business or the Virginia business, we stay silent while they do their business, but when we have joint business and decisions to make, each one board votes and the other board votes, and then you take that combined vote. That's what I think is the most fair.
Anybody else have input?
well, I just agree with, with what Kelly is saying, that I see this as a cooperative kind of thing, and I don't see Virginia members wanting to go against the wishes of what Evelyn or vice versa.
Do you think Virginia would be more apt to represent their community in certain decisions than maybe the Gilbert community or the Vale Township or something? So when it comes to some of those decisions?
I guess I can't even understand what those decisions would potentially be.
I don't know what they'd have to gain
Right.
by doing anything like that myself.
I mean, we're talking about a construction of the building and programming, which the reality is we have all of these other committees that are helping guide that process. So it's not like that joint powers agreement and the individuals represented on that are going to be making these decisions in isolation without any input. I mean, it's just like what we reached to for the referendum. All of that was not necessarily our board's decisions. It was gathered from all of these committees, which these committees continue to be happening for programming and for design and everything else. So I'm assuming that it's still not the boards that are going to actually be actively making those decisions. It's going to be recommendations that are coming forward that the board then will be.
You're right, they are recommendations, the board is
It'll still be the board
ultimately.
making the final decision.
Yeah, but it's input that I know our Evelyn, Gilbert, Fayette, every other community that is represented for our board alone have been having input in all the programming meetings and the design meetings and all of that. So I know their voice is coming out with that recommendation.
We're getting off topic a little bit, but
I don't think
we don't really know that because this was on a volunteer basis. We don't know that everything was represented, but I don't want to go there. The other thing is that this joint powers board will likely, I'm inferring that if there are subcommittees of this joint powers board, there might be I don't know, like say a negotiation committee meeting, a special facilities committee, that will be the same small number of people that will be having input and voicing and making those decisions. So that narrows it down again from the board to smaller committees to
Like I said, I'm fine with the way it's presented.
I don't have any trust issues or anything with Virginia, and I feel like from what my discussions or whatever have been with any of their board members, I don't feel they have any issues with trust with us either. I think we've all been in it for the same reason, and that's kids, and I don't see any ill will from either side.
once again, it's not trust. It is representing our communities.
And I get what you're saying, Polly, but some of that sounds like a mistrust thing, and I just, that's how I feel anyways. So I just want it to be said that I don't feel there's any reason to mistrust anybody.
So what will be left for those people who are not on the Joint Powers Board, decisions to be made? Just until the new schools are built and the Evelyn Gilbert Elementary will be the first one built. And so what kind of work is left for them or to be running each separate high school until the new academy is built?
Our day-to-day operations still have to happen. We're still meeting to discuss kindergarten enrollment. We're still looking at our budgets. We're still, our board continues to meet. This is taking the design and programming piece specifically for the academies and also looking at the design and building for the elementaries, putting that aside over there to work solely on that, where we can work on our day-to-day operations because we still have kids that we are educating, we still have teachers' contracts that we're working with, and we still have, that's what our board will be doing, the stuff that they've been doing for the last 20, 30 years.
And again, even with the alternates, now are you expecting that the alternates will attend all of the Joint Powers meetings to keep up to speed with the conversation so that they can jump in when they might be needed to fill somebody else's seat?
I would expect them to be
all
there.
Would be my understanding.
Be there and be at the table.
Okay,
Yeah.
I would expect that too, and I think that would be important. And for that same reason, then, I think that the voices and the, well then, say the other board members that are not on the Joint Powers Board or an alternate, I would think that they would want to follow along with the deliberations also. So he or she, or they would likely attend these meetings also, but they would just be a non-input giving a non-voice, I don't know, we don't have the bylaws yet either. What are the bylaws? Are you going to have visitor input for the public, for the board members that aren't on the
I
joint
think
board?
that, I
That would be
think
for
all
them to
that is
decide.
coming up,
Well,
Once that board gets made
Yeah.
up, and then they elect their officers and
yeah,
like that.
I think those are important things, but again, the voice and the opinions and the ideas of all board members and all constituents of the public, that's my feeling.
I don't foresee any problem with having a full board like Evans, Gilbert, and Virginia. I mean, this is all for the kids anyway, right? So I think we all are gonna act accordingly. So I agree that we should have the full input.
Would there be any
And we
problem
get,
in having a full board?
No, I say we should stay with 7 and 6.
I'm just wondering from the people who seem to support the smaller board, do you have a problem? Do you think a 13-member board or 2 separate boards would not work? And if so, why do you feel
I
that
don't,
way?
personally, I don't have an issue either way, but I'm fine with the way it's presented, like I said.
It's been
Fine with
presented
that, too.
because that's the way the attorneys wrote it up.
Well,
I mean, and that's what was presented, so now we're presenting another portion, but okay,
I think it's more efficient with 7. I think that the conversation and the pieces that it is easy for, and take it as you guys want, I don't care. It's easy to go round and round discussing the same things over and over and over, sitting at this table without decisions being made. You add another 6 people to that, I don't know how quickly decisions are going to be made.
I agree with
So,
that.
I
Yeah.
think that's a function of how a meeting is run or not run, because we have legislatures, state and federal legislatures, and they run very smoothly if you follow the,
I disagree. I disagree that they run smoothly.
Have you ever had a experience or on boards like that, a 13-member or 2 separate boards, like our consolidated boards?
No, I've had experience with larger group settings in trying to manage and have group decision-making versus what it's like to have a 7 to 10, yes.
Well, I
And with
have
the-
2 and it works.
With the legislature, it's a much more formal process as far as how much time individuals can offer input and everything else.
We could have that too, on a smaller scale. So,
Anything else on that topic, Mr. Chair?
No, sir.
All right, moving on to the resolution. It was requested at our previous meeting that 8, which is found on page 5, be changed from an at-large basis to based upon new school board eventually comprised of 1 at-large member, 3 members elected from an election district within the boundaries of the former Evelyn Gilbert School District, and 3 members elected from an election district within the boundaries of the former Virginia School District.
and this is the first time I've seen this language, so when was this changed? And who changed it and why?
This is what you guys
We
talked
had,
about.
we had a discussion about that.
Mitch changed it exactly the way that the board wanted to.
I don't remember specifically,
We talked about it, and I'm with Polly that I don't think we agreed at the table that this is how we should look at it. In fact, my understanding was we were looking at getting into more of a precinct kind of thing and further breaking down our districts, which I would not be in favor
Right.
of. But I think that's what I took that Mitch was gonna come and propose some language that would break it down even more than our district and their district. Frankly, I would think that would be going backwards, personally.
I agree, because I'm the one that brought up the precinct thing. And once I started thinking about it more, it would be more beneficial to just have, Evans Gilbert boundaries right now for the 3, and then Virginia's current boundaries for their school district for the other 3, and then 1 at large. It just seemed like, to me, that seems like a fair way to do it, and the precincts might not have, we have a hard time getting people to run for the school board. So we might have a precinct that doesn't have anybody running, and then what's the situation in that case? So when I was thinking about it, it would be beneficial to do, like I said, our current boundaries and have a 3-3 and 1 at large. And I guess, don't know, we could have gone 2 and 3 at large, but,
I think eventually to get to a point, kind of like we did, similar to what we did with, my understanding with when Evelyn and Gilbert merged or consolidated, where for a period of time there were representatives of the respective districts, and eventually they became all at
All at
large.
large,
Mhm.
yes.
and that's what I foresaw happening in this situation as well. So it would be so many election cycles or so many years and then be able to go at
Exactly.
large.
My only issue is, and I'm gonna sound like a broken record here, this, which I think is supposed to be Exhibit B,
That's Exhibit A.
Exhibit A.
oh, this is Exhibit A?
The map is Exhibit B.
Here it says, plan attached,
Yeah,
which plan is attached to is Exhibit B.
the members, yeah, is Exhibit B. We
I mean,
just have to
that's, so
change
it
that.
doesn't, I'm lost, because Exhibit A says,
That's just a typo. Exhibit B should be Exhibit A.
but I don't think it's a typo, Jeff doesn't think it's a typo, so it's,
I didn't type it, so.
right, but here it says attached here to and incorporated herein as Exhibit A is a map. This is not a map.
The other map,
The other-
they were swapped though.
Yeah.
is what
I
I'm
know,
saying.
that's what I'm trying to, but Jeff didn't think that.
Well, we can,
Well, Exhibit A would be the
We just-
map then.
I'm confused, but anyhow.
switch it over.
We just want things
Said it was
clarified, that's
Exhibit A, I think it's Exhibit B, but whatever, it doesn't make sense according to this
You can
current
change it.
language.
We'll
We can
just
change
switch
them.
them. Yeah, just switch them.
But I mean, if you swap the A and B, that issue aside, this doesn't make sense because this is talking about existing Evelyn Gilbert members from, that are up for election next year, 22 election cycle just with Virginia, and how that phases
And that's,
into 7 at-large members
So what
by
I,
No.
January 1 of 2023.
that's my question too, and that's what number 8 doesn't say.
so I was
You can
looking,
take that out too, if it doesn't matter. I mean, all you're doing with this resolution is you're starting a process. I mean, how the board is made up can be decided, I mean, you can kick the can down the road, it can be part of the consolidation plan. A different board down the road can make that decision.
And I don't think it's kicking the can down the road, and if we're gonna include it, let's include it. If we're
Right.
gonna take it out, let's take it out and decide it later. But
I-
don't put stuff in here that doesn't make sense.
Yeah, and say you're going to change it, or it might be different, because I'd like to know what I'm voting on. And like 8, if this is where you were going, Matt, this one goes upon consolidation, which should be July of next year.
granted that the state gives you the blessing to consolidate.
Okay.
and then,
Okay.
even then, we still have to
Okay.
make our decision.
But
Okay.
then
Whether
this,
it's the board
number
vote
8
or
short
community
changes,
vote.
short circuits it right to here, right to the 7-member board, and not 13, 9, and 7. That goes straight to the 7, and that's different than...
No, because they talk about Exhibit B, or whatever this is
But
here.
it doesn't make sense.
But
Okay.
the language doesn't say that. It says upon consolidation, then you will have 7 members, 3, 3, and 1 at large. And
Well,
that's,
he's right.
it's inconsistent, yeah, I agree.
But
I mean, I
Mitch
don't-
was supposed to be here, he's stuck in
So-
Rapids right now.
I guess I don't think this is as confusing as some might see it. Because if you look at the 2020 election, Evelyn Gilbert has 4 people that are going to be up for election.
Yep.
And Virginia has 3. There will be 3 new seats because that's maintaining the integrity of the existing 3
Right.
Evelyn Gilbert, 3 Virginia. So then we'd end up having 9 seats for a little while. The 3 new seats, you do 1 and 1 for the districts, the top vote
Right.
getters for each district. And then you can choose to have that 3rd one at large, since it's an odd number. And then your next round, in 2022, when 3 and 3 are up for election, at that point, we need 4,
Right.
2 and 2 from
and
each district.
Absolutely, that could be
I mean,
easily done and
yes,
it'd
it's
be a
just not
matter of changing
necessarily,
colors.
exactly.
Right.
It's just not necessarily, but that's how you would make it work. It's
And-
just whenever there's an odd seat number is when we would choose to have that at-large
Large.
member come in.
Right.
Which would be the 3rd top vote getter regardless of district.
Yep.
No, I
Oh,
would
wait,
see
wait, wait,
that
wait, I
as,
don't
I mean,
understand.
you'd have
Huh?
people running for an Evelyn seat,
No, no.
people running for
No.
a Virginia seat, people running for an at-large seat.
I know, but if you had the top vote getter from Evelyn Gilbert and you had the top vote getter from Virginia,
Yeah.
who would the
It's a
at-large
whole
be?
separate election.
I would
It's
think it is
one
too.
that people in
Well, I know, but
either
the-
district vote.
I think it's
Yeah.
dependent. I think it can look different ways. So like,
That's important.
so fail board, when people run for fail board, you run for the seat.
Yep,
We do not run for the seat for school board.
correct.
We run for open seats. So I think you can present it different ways. I don't necessarily like a seat run because I think that poses people to not have to challenge others, that they don't want, I mean, but I don't think that's necessarily any decision-making that we have to make right here because that wouldn't necessarily just be us. It would be a planned consolidation of how that at-large member would be elected.
But, when you say you can change it later, but you know what?
That's not changing it later.
No.
It's that we don't get to make a decision for if we go through the consolidation and we in fact consolidate, we don't get to make a decision for what the consolidated board is going to decide. We don't have that much power.
Some board members may still be on that board. And some may not. That's another point I'd like to clarify is, does this new language shorten any of the terms of any of the current board members on any of the district? If you go straight to the
I
7?
would say no,
I don't
because
think
there'd
so.
be statute you'd have to follow.
You can shorten or lengthen any board member's term of office, the statute says. And I totally don't understand how this is now going to go from, it was talked about 13-9 to 7,
For election cycles.
to, as of 2020, upon consolidation, it will go to 7. Does that shorten anybody's term? You can't say for sure or not. And here's the other thing.
I would probably reword it, Polly, to say that upon consolidation, the reduction of the school board would commence per Exhibit B.
Expiring terms.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
That's how you could word it. I mean, I don't think you would just end somebody's term because of,
So,
I mean, I just don't feel that would be
But
good.
you can shorten or lengthen terms.
But I don't think we would go there.
You don't.
I don't think,
That's why
I
we
mean,
need it clear. That's why we need it
number
clear.
8 does not specify exactly how it's going to go there because that is part of the consolidation process planning. Number 8 says that upon consolidation, the election of school board members for the newly consolidated school district going forward will be based upon a new school board eventually comprised of 1 at-large member and 3 members from each original district. So it's not saying for sure this is the step, this is the timeline, anything. It's saying the goal will be to eventually get to that point. How we end up doing that, that should be part of the consolidation process. Again, it's not something that I would like to hear Virginia's input on, too, of where we would go and not just making a decision on our end.
Well, exactly, we should be
I
meeting
think it's
together.
worded fine in the resolution, though.
And the point about we can maybe change it later, we don't have to decide now. Here's the problem with that in any kind of a legal document. You agree to something, and to change it, it's harder to change something later if you don't have agreement. But if you know going into it what you're agreeing to, maybe a positive or a negative change, it's harder to change something that's officially adopted and to change something.
I agree, but that's what I'm saying. I think the wording is fine with how it is, though. That eventually we will get to that, but it's not saying this is,
Specific.
it's not giving any specific thing.
It'll be worked out
If you
later.
look at number 7, it actually says upon consolidation, you originally have the 13-member board, which will eventually be reduced to the final school board going. Total number is 7, which please think the number is. And you're going to start with, the first cycle, you're going to start with 13.
So with this, then, it would be honoring the terms of the board members.
So you could say that 2026 would be the last election cycle where that's where you would get down to 7, correct?
No, probably not, 23.
This is saying 23, if you wanted to make it 26, you could. Because, All right, so our next election cycle is what, 2021?
Correct.
And we have 4 members up. This is saying you're going to continue to go with 13
Mm-hmm.
until the 2023 election.
And you get to
That's when
9,
we start getting down.
to 9,
No, that's,
This has it at 7, but.
right. But by the time you consolidate, by the
No,
time,
2023 is 7.
correct.
Even on Gary Lee's plan.
But are you gonna be able to meet that deadline for, so if you say you consolidated by July 1st, are you gonna be, is there gonna be enough time to have that fall vote? You know what I'm saying, to get those
Well, I
on the
think-
ballot?
On number 7, though, I mean, things are going to, board elections would be normal that first time around.
Okay,
We'd have a 15-member board for 2 years.
that's how I understand it.
Yeah,
Okay, so then that would take you out to,
2023. That's when the changes start.
well, on the chart, it says 2021, you'd go down to 9.
yeah.
It's
That's,
not, it's not a number
but
7.
2021, you wouldn't be able to probably do anything in the fall of 2020 to make a difference on 2021. You'd have to wait 2 years for the
Yeah,
next election cycle.
This could be pushed back 2 years depending on our time frame of when we actually
Yeah,
vote on
this is
consolidating.
assuming July 1 of 2020
Yeah.
for consolidation.
Right.
Yep,
Right,
but this could get moved back then by 2 years to,
I figured it out, if I could change colors, I would present this for folks, but that does what Kelly is saying, where it's just the colors are different.
right.
Where you aren't
It could be
electing
worked
green,
out.
you're electing a black, and you're electing a gold and a dark blue there, and 2 blacks and 2 light blues there,
so I would just recommend that
and 1
we
green here.
remove this from the resolution,
That's fine.
and just stick with the wording of it.
So you're not intending to go from a 13 to a 9 to a 7?
Yes, but I don't think that this is necessarily
It's not accurate on date
As
and possibly
clear
date.
with, because this is dependent on the consolidation timeline.
Well, none of these dates might not be accurate. We might not be
Right.
able to,
Right,
Right.
we might not be able to pull it off. I mean,
and if this is 2021, it just shifts everything a cycle.
And that's
Right.
exactly what, yeah, it would just, we would end up having a larger board for a longer cycle.
Right.
So on 7, then 7 does not include a 9-member board in its language like the chart does.
I think that would be in the plan, Polly, where it says pursuant to the plan submitted, and we don't have the plan, but I think you either go from, depending on how it was, from 13 to 9 to 7, to 13 to 11 to 7, or 13 to 10 to 7.
But yeah, just
That
as
would be
we're-
spelled out in the
Eventually,
plan.
like Kelly,
will be
like Kelly
reduced.
said, it says eventually will be reduced.
Yes.
So I don't think it has to be that specific.
Eventually is another word like the words like potential or possible or, so. Anyhow, but the other point I'd like to make is, so in the consolidation resolution we're looking at now, it's acceptable to have a 13-member board for at least 2 years. So why is it not fathomable to have a joint powers 13-member board or 2 separate boards like that? So you're going to jump from, what we have now to a 6-member board with 2 alternates, to a 13, to a 9, Why is it okay here but not here?
Because that's how the joint powers agreement was wrote up.
Well,
I mean,
I
that's.
write anything up.
But that's the way it was wrote
Discussing
up.
the reasons for it and the rationale and the workability.
Because again, I think it's very specific stuff that is working on a very focused plan and details that need to be able to have information, input, and continue moving forward. We cannot have a 10-year construction timeline.
That's not even part of the discussion.
Well, you know
Kelly.
what, that's my concern.
I'm just comparing apples to
I'm telling you,
apples.
that's my concern.
Apples to oranges as far as our...
We've shown our effectiveness at decision-making sometimes.
Anything else on that?
I do, I have, I don't know exactly where it is, but I talked about it the last time, is that I don't agree with the joint board, while we're not consolidated districts, we're still independent school districts, the joint board of members of one district making decisions, legal decisions, for the other school district and for our other taxpayers of a different district, until we're consolidated. Then it's a whole different ballgame. But until we get there, it's going to be at least a year. It could be more than a year.
That's jumping back to the joint
Yeah.
powers.
Well,
Yes, and we're done talking about that.
well, no, it's in here, isn't it? About the consolidation agreement, and I know that in earlier versions, it was in brackets, either this or that according to statute that we could choose. It would be like taking on each other's debt, okay?
Right.
Those are important things, and I think that we can and should put that in this document now and not wait until later, so everybody knows.
And I made it very clear, last time, I would not be in support of that. I'm not gonna I don't get where all of a sudden decisions are wanting to be made without having clear documentation, but yet other times you're frustrated about decisions being made if you don't have clear documentation. And I'm not gonna make a decision if I don't have what our current levies are, what Virginia's are, what the money's been used for, no.
Does it
And
matter
I
what the
did
numbers
tell
are?
it does to me.
Why does it matter what the numbers are?
Again, I don't even know. I'm not doing what if. I am not comfortable making a decision about being black and white, because there may be something I say, you know what, I'm fine with. I don't know, and I'm not gonna agree to make a decision on that if I don't have the information in front of me, and I find it odd that you're okay making that decision without information when we continue to hear you wanting more information for stuff, which is not necessarily bad, but it's odd.
The point to me is, and I don't think it's odd at all, the point to me is, it's a principle of something, whether Virginia should take on our debt or we should take on their debt. To me, it doesn't matter if it's $100 or $1 million. The taxpayers of that other district really should have the right to make that decision and not to have to take on someone else's debt when they have not been part of that decision to begin with.
Well, let's
So
see
that's
the
yes or no.
plan and what the plan says, and then we'll vote on the plan. I think it's premature to be talking about that right now, honestly, and I think if Mitch was here, he would admit that the document got out that was just a string of his thoughts.
But that document was based on statute, because the statute said you can either do this, you can
Or
keep
can
your
wait.
own, or you
Yes.
can assume, okay?
And let's
Or
let
we
that
can wait on the
plan,
decision until the consolidation plan is done and actually then
We can weigh in on
vote
that
on,
decision.
weigh on that when we have the information. That's what I'm saying. I get, and I spoke with, or I emailed someone about that, no, I'm not going to be, I don't believe I will be in support of something that is an astronomical debt that we would be bringing on to our taxpayers. Because I do understand that they voted on this stuff and that was something that they did not vote on. However, I'm sorry, if there is a smaller amount of money that our kids are going to be benefiting from too going into the school, I can't necessarily say that I wouldn't be in agreement.
But it might be small for you, Kelly, but it might be large for some of
Okay,
our
I get it.
taxpayers.
I understand that. I work with certain individuals that do not, are strapped for money. So I do understand that. But I'm saying I'm not making a decision if I don't have that information. And it's not black and white to me.
Yeah, it is to me.
Anything else on that? Okay, Mr. Chair, if we could move to number 3. I'm going to talk a little bit, I've been talking about the kindergarten class creeping up around 70. We actually had 75 registered this morning when I wrote this up. We had 2 individuals that decided to do the 4-year-old program again, so I actually have 73. But we do have several more on the list that are possibilities, even if it was 73. Currently, we're sitting at 3 sections, which would be 25, 24, 24.
A lot of little people.
I would propose we split that into 4 sections, which would be 3 sections 18 and 1 of 19. You can see the cost potentials down there that would add to our budget, but I think it would be money well spent at this point because 25 is just too many.
That's too
I
many.
agree.
Yeah, I agree.
So if it's all the same to you guys, I'd like to add that at the table tonight to post for a kindergarten teacher.
All right,
Sounds good.
sounds good.
All right, and then finally, I invited, as you know, we did some tours of some elementary schools, and I invited some folks here from both our staff and Virginia staff to give you a little overview of what they saw. And go ahead, please. You're in.
Thank you.
Okay, well, first of all, we have 2 spokespeople, but we have a bunch of us here, like Jeff said. And we're going to be playing our slideshow so you can see some of the pictures and some of the things that we actually got to look at. So we'll be talking through what the experience was and what we saw and how we reflected on all that. And we're going to start with introductions quick. So I am Steph Letzka, and I actually teach high school social studies at Virginia.
And I'll be speaking on behalf of the Evelyn Gilbert and Laura Lalonde. I'm 5th grade teacher at Nelsheen.
And we also have a bunch of our team here, but we wanted you to know that we had a variety of representation that went with, and we are so appreciative that we got this amazing opportunity. We had maintenance staff to superintendents to board members, which was awesome. Pre-K through 12th grade teachers, SPED, administration. What an amazing opportunity. So our team that's here with us, but there were so many more. I think there was something like 30 of us, and it was an incredible experience. So thank you. First, we want to talk about just a little bit of what this experience was like. It was difficult for some of us, like having heard for so long what, Alexandria was like and this new building and sitting on these programming meetings and like trying to figure out like how do we design a building and what is education going to look like in 100 years. That's almost impossible to us, but we gave it a go. And basically what it came down to, I think, is this really big change. And a lot of us, our initial thing is, fear, being a little apprehensive. And we heard that people had gone and, oh my gosh, when they saw Alexandria, it was amazing. And then we got to go. And honestly, really seeing was believing. I speak for many of us when we talked on the bus that we were like skeptical. We were worried about things like, what would that look like? How would we even do that? What is that going to be like for us? And then we came out of this opportunity with like this total confidence and renewed energy, just passion for what we are hoping to do because we actually understood. Literally, we got to see it, and it isn't just like one facility, it is like this whole paradigm shift that happened. So that was incredible. You can see some of the places that we walked into, and the first one was an elementary school, Meadowlark, and we went there. That was a big deal. It's this eye-opening, every space is flexible and different, and we're like, we can't even fathom how that would run. And then we got to ask questions and be there. And I think a lot of us came out of that like almost kind of awestruck. Like, is that even possible to do? Even with our questions and having seen it. And then we went to the next school right after that. And then we saw a new school that was just a new school. It was a traditional style school that was new. So it had bells and whistles. It had a lot of great stuff. But after we got back on the bus from that point, that was kind of when most of us were like, okay, we don't want a new school. We want this incredible, innovative, new way of teaching. That's what we wanted. And when we reflected and talked about it, from maintenance to board members to teachers, it was a unanimous shift. How incredible. We knew like this innovation, and it starts with this flexible space and all the things that came together were just an entire new perspective. And I myself was really worried about a lot of things before I went on this trip. I kind of went being like, well, I don't know how this is going to work. I don't know what this is going to look like, but I'm open to it because I hear about it. You know, you hear your colleagues talk about Alexandria, and you hear all these great things, and you want that, but it kind of seems like it's just way out there in left field. And now we know because you gave us this opportunity. So couldn't be more appreciative of that. We came back with this idea that we're going to have a legacy up here that we're going to create for our area, that parents will want their kids to be at our schools, having listened to a lot of these schools that opened and doubled in capacity like the next year. We think students will have pride in these schools and will want to be there. It's a whole like student-driven learning idea that we want to create and that these facilities make possible. And that was a big deal. But basically, we came out of there with just excitement. It was just a moment. I really felt that I hadn't like really experienced something that significant and like renewed energy for teaching and for what I do than this trip. So it was that incredible. And we're going to try to share some of these things of what we saw and what we heard.
All right, so I too, on this trip, was a little, I was enthralled by the idea of what this could look like or what it could be, but seeing it was, it's what cemented it to us. And so for me, like, I want to be part of this. I want to be this innovative part of this district that's just going to be amazing. So I want to share with you a few things that we saw and that we heard. There were some common themes that we saw among all of these schools. One of the first things that we saw was flexible learning spaces, from classrooms to the community learning spaces to the big common areas. Everything was flexible and usable in many different ways. And so we saw collaborative areas, we saw maker spaces of all sorts and geared at different levels and different interests through the schools. Even within the same school, Meadowlark had 4 different maker space areas, and each grade or each pod had their own theme that they went with. From one of them was like robotics, and another one was cardboard and wood and construction, and they tailored it to whatever their needs were. We also saw a lot of reflective student caves, little places for kids to collaborate together, whether it's a bench seat or, you know, little sitting areas like this, to little cubbies where they can go and kind of work just 2 of them together, or, you know, glass sort of meeting spaces for like 8 to 10 kind of kids. So all sorts of seating and options that we saw there. We noticed also, you know, if you're attending the meetings with the architects, they kept using the spaces, instead of saying classroom, my classroom, they talked about learning studios or learning spaces, and the language was changing. And so for us to actually see that, we no longer want my classroom. It's now we want our collaborative learning spaces, because we saw that. We were able to see what this could be. And so the language is changing, and it's a whole shift in how we teach and how we approach learning for these kids. We saw a new way of viewing learning that meets students' needs, clearly. 21st century learning skills were there. They were adamant. The 21st century workforce that we want to promote and provide businesses the skills they want, we saw it. We saw what could be possible. It was cool. Facilities also incorporated outdoor learning spaces as well. Some schools had outdoor learning spaces for every pod. Some, they just worked in the outdoors as well as their indoors, because learning isn't contained in a classroom anymore. And that was really neat. We did see research-based ideals that were incorporated into the environment. Almost every single school had exercise equipment spread throughout the facility for kids who are fidgety or who need to move. Some schools actually had it implemented into their day. 5 minutes, 5 times a day, everybody is expected to go and walk and exercise, because they know that whole body movement is important. Our kids don't need to be sitting in seats for hours upon hours at end. We heard strong leaders with great passion for their schools. They had a clear vision. They knew where they were heading. They knew what they were doing, and they were passionate about what they were doing. And so we had superintendents speak with us. We had principals. We had one principal speak for the other principal's school while she had to leave. I mean, but they all shared that passion and that vision for where they were going. And the teachers as well. We did talk to a couple teachers. And then the other thing that we saw and that we heard from all those that we spoke to is that professional development for our staff started years before their spaces. before the spaces had caught up to them. We need to get the professional development going starting this year. We've got to start this now to get everybody on board to make this amazing for our kids. And so we're kind of here to beg for your support to get us there, because we need to get moving on that.
So, because we're teachers, and we saw all this, and we're super excited and super energetic, and spent a lot of time reflecting, even on the bus, you immediately make a list. You know, how do we get there, right? I mean, what do we really need for this? So we got busy, and of course you can see all of our pictures. We have these for the public to view as well. But we understand largely that you won't get it from a picture, and you won't get it from people telling you. Some of us just literally had to experience it. So when it came down to what we needed, we started with, like, yes, professional development. We heard that everybody had worked together in a shared vision to make these things happen and make these spaces awesome. And that's what we want. Like, we do want that for our colleagues, as many people as you could give this opportunity to as possible, because it was just eye-opening for everyone. And I think that sparks the enthusiasm, and it'll keep it going. You know, when the people who went, we consider ourselves already a team. We had a great time together. We've had a great time since we've been home working on stuff together, which is awesome. Planning time between staffs, as soon as that could start, the better. Team building, which we already see ourselves as a team. The takedown of the walls of, like, this is, you know, my student or my community. They're all our kids. They're all our kids. These are all of our communities, and we got to work together as soon as possible. There's some, you know, the great resources there, the leaders, they had asked, you know, did you guys want to come back when there's students in here or teachers in here? Because we had a lot of great leadership we got to talk with and have questions, but we didn't get to see it all in action necessarily. So that would be great. And then to just make sure that we have those strong leaders stepping up. We need school board, we need admin, we need strong people with this vision to help us out, because we're ready for it. We are ready to do this, but it's going to take time and strong leaders. A lot of the questions we have at, like, the programming meetings seem to be little things that we can't answer yet, but with curriculum planning and program planning and whatever that's going to be, you know, teachers and everybody will start to feel a little bit more comfortable with, how are we going to get this made? How are we going to do it? That will answer a lot of those things. Even just saying, hey, we have this vision of, you know, project-based learning or something that we're going to run with together. So when we wanted to come back and talk to you guys, it was big on whatever board action you can take to get this ball rolling for us. That's what we need. We need you as our leaders to share in this vision with us, so we can be here. We can make this awesome. Basically, you know, we already see ourselves as a team, and we want you to partner with us in that. Like, the time is now. We're ready.
All right. And so my last closing comments are, why do we need this? Why do we need this now? Why do we need your support? Why do we need to move this forward? Change doesn't happen magically when we move to a new building. We've got so much to do before we can get to a building, and we can't just open the doors and start teaching a different way and start collaborating. It doesn't quite work that way, so we need help. We need time. Again, we need time to make it happen. We need to try out these new concepts and ideas and get comfortable with that before stepping into that new building. We need to start collaborating with our partners in ways that we hadn't thought of before. There's so many systems and discussions and decisions that we have to make, that you have to make, that we have to be a part of, that we're going to need time. And they need to be made so that we can avoid the domino effect of delays. If we delay the first school, then everything gets delayed all the way down the line, and that just makes it hard for everybody in the community. Needs us to stay on track with where we need to go for their kids. Consolidation is a huge process. That's, you know, the next step after the joint powers, but we need to give our communities a timeline for consideration, so they can trust and understand the process of where we're leading and what our timeline is looking like to get us there. So what I end is, the ball is on the field. We need you to kick it into play. We need to get moving so we can plan and develop and collaborate and make these changes so we're ready when those doors open. The innovation that we want to move forward with, and you can see on these slides, is a school that we want other schools to come and visit and model their schools after. We want to be the reason that people come and see what we're doing. We want to be the forward-thinking district in the state of Minnesota. So please help us. Help us make this be the Northlands legacy for future generations. The time is tonight. We know what we experienced, we know what we want, and we know what we need. And if it's right for kids, it's right. Thank you for your time, all of you.
And we know that this is a lot, but we're definitely open for questions if anyone has any.
Just one comment, having been to Alexandria, the first school you were showing, I thought it was Alexandria for quite a while. Looked an awful lot alike.
And I mean, of course, we learned little specifics about all this stuff, but it really, to take home the big picture of the experience was incredible. Appreciate it.
Thank you for that. And to be honest, I was elementary, right? I didn't really care to go see the high schools. I didn't understand why I would need to see that part. I thought high school people should be there. It was amazing to see where we're going with these kids and that we're going to be the feeder schools to get these kids to be doing what was there and what was being offered was amazing. And I'm so, so glad that we did that. Because I have the vision, I've got the big vision, I've got the big picture. It was very helpful.
And we felt that vice versa. Like high school, I looked on the agenda and the first couple schools were elementary. And I was kind of like, oh, it'll be nice to see, but it was incredible. Like these are the elementary schools. The first one we walked into, Meadowlark, was the one that like really hit home. I mean, it's incredible to see how it will work even as a little kid and how it will feed into what we're trying to do. That was impressive.
Thank you, ladies.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Take a little break.
Yep. We'll just take a break, and then we'll have our regular meeting.